Oh, well, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. This is actually episode 555, and you would think that by now I would have the video and audio cues all figured out, but you would be wrong, folks. This is the Rec Poker Podcast. We try our best, but this is amateur hour in the best possible way, and I'm so proud to be here. I have the best freaking job in the world, hanging out here on Monday nights with my friends over YouTube, talking poker with the RECing Crew. Come join us for free every week on Monday at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. Show up for free, and you can win a real prize just for being part of the group. I've got some exciting news. Fox Wallace is here for the show tonight, and we'll get to him in just a second. I'm really excited to get into some stuff with Chris Fox Wallace. First, I have to thank our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. If you want to find out more about them, you can go to runaces.com. They're an hour north of the Twin Cities in the beautiful state of Minnesota. And I just got back from a banger of a weekend, Rec Poker weekend at Running Aces. We broke some attendance records for tournament participation. We gave away a bunch of prizes. Chris Jones binked a tournament. He also freaking bubbled me right off the final table holding pocket fives as like a fairy tale story, but I gave him the goods later on. Anyway, you'll hear more about that later, but thank you to Running Aces. We are a largely volunteer-based organization. Most of what we do here is free, so we really depend on the support of our sponsors and our premium members. I want to thank everyone who's a premium member for your $15 a month. I mean, it's for less than 50 cents a day. You can come connect over Zoom with other fun, encouraging poker players, all trying to get better for free, or all trying to get better together. But you can also join for free. We have so many free resources here at Rec Poker, and all it takes to sign up is an email address and a smile, although we do encourage both. Now, they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm only one man, and it takes a group, a gang, a village, a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call this group of wizards the RECing Crew, and if you want to find out more about me or the rest of the RECing Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, but you can also just listen up because you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the show, starting with producing co-host Chris Jones.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the Poker Stars home game. And yes, I did bank a tournament this weekend, but the highlight was knocking Jim out in his last 10,000 chips in the tournament. And I run our monthly deep dive for Rec Poker.
And I'm John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek MN Everywhere. And I run our home games. And I managed to play in all 4 Rec Poker tournaments twice without cashing. Although I was the bubble boy in one.
So you and I were both bubbled. That's fantastic. Great work, everybody. Joseph?
Hey, guys. I'm Joseph Wills. I am hockey_poker in the X Twitterverse and hockey_poker 702 in the Poker Stars home game. Also, you can find me on the website. Look for the Be a Better Fish series of articles on the site because we all want to be a better fish.
And I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere. And you can join me every first and third Wednesdays of each month when we go through different poker books and study them together.
That's right. It's just one of the perks of being a premium member here. We have so many great ways of learning poker together, studying poker together, playing. It's part of this great community that we've become a part of here at Rec Poker. So I am so excited. We're going to be joined this week by Chris Fox Wallace. And I'm just going to break the news. Chris, you are our very newest RECing Crew member. He's taken the plunge. He wants to get more involved with Rec Poker. Fox is going to be contributing to some of our premium membership material. He's going to be offering some coaching stuff through our shop. There's going to be a bunch of ways you can work with Fox directly or with some of our study groups. So, Fox, I just want to say, what a great fit this is, because we've been like bosom Minnesota buddies for a long time, you and the Rec Poker community. Yeah. And I'm grateful for your participation. And I just want to say welcome to the show and welcome to the RECing Crew.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. I have been like rec poker adjacent for years now, and was
Yeah.
friends with a lot of the original, crew, and I've known Somsky for I don't know 15 years or something, and have played with almost everybody who's in the crew in Minnesota, and knew Steve right from the start, and helped actually bought the original rec.poker domain name for Steve, and have
Ah,
been part of it for a long time. So it's about time, I guess.
that's amazing. Yeah, overdue, I think. And you've been a great friend of the show, like I say, for a long time. So I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. We've been talking about a few different ways that our members can kind of get more Chris Fox Wallace in their life. And stay tuned, folks, I guess is all I can say. You'll see some details coming out over the next few weeks about some of these fantastic productions that we're putting together and different study opportunities and that kind of thing. So Chris, most of our listeners kind of have heard of you. They know who you are. But let's just if our listeners don't, if there's a few new listeners that we picked up recently and they don't know about you, can you just give a little bit of a kind of a background on what people should know and kind of like what you're working on now? You've had so much success. You're a published author, WSOP bracelet winner, coach. You've worked with training sites. Well, don't let me put you in a box. Why don't you get started?
Yeah, I've done well. I quit my last job in the year 2000. I've been a serial entrepreneur my entire life. I just don't like having a boss, really. So I've done a lot of things in the poker world. Worked most recently for Cards Chat. Was one of their was a writer for them. I've done a lot of writing. Published 3 books. Worked for I don't know 10 training sites, maybe more. You can see my content on Poker X Factor, Red Chip Poker, Learn WPT, Ivy League. I don't remember all the rest, a bunch of them. And I've trained some of the best players in the world. I have had a string over the last couple of years of like old school TV famous pros who have come to me and said, I need to learn this new school stuff. So it's been super fun to work with some of the people who were like a big deal when I was first getting started, that like, oh, if I could just play with this person, that would be cool. And now I'm coaching them. Written 3 books on the topic, made tons of training content, but mostly been a professional poker player for the last 24 years or so. And then I have all these other side hustles because I don't want to play poker full time anymore. So I love coaching. I love a little bit of playing but do a bunch of other things too.
I think that's, such an important point. I did a AMA on Twitter the other day, and the question of like being a pro came up, and I was just like, oh God, the life of a full-time pro honestly sounds terrible, but the life of someone, but if you can like have playing poker be like a little piece of what you're doing, I mean, man, that's the way to do it, right? You've obviously transitioned to that, and you feel like that's the right way to do it if you've got these other ways of making money from the poker world.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a poker pro initially. I decided I was going to be a poker pro before I had ever played a hand of Texas Hold'em. And 6 months later, I was making too much money to go to work and quit my job. But most people can't get away with that. I had a car that was paid off. I lived in a small apartment. I didn't have a lot of expenses. I was young. I didn't have a family. I didn't have any of those things. It would be insane for most people to do that now. And the game is so much tougher now. I'm not sure that in 6 months I could be that good now if I just started fresh. And, it's really hard. And my friend Al Schoonmaker, who wrote all the books on poker psychology, Al told me 20 years ago, poker is a great side hustle and a really miserable full-time job. And I had to do it full-time for about 12 years before I realized he was right. It took me a long time. And he's right. It really isn't a great full-time job. Most of the full-time pros that I know are not they're not doing great. They're either not happy, they don't have fulfilling lives, or they're not physically healthy, or whatever it is. It's very hard. That you do have your a few of the superstars who are like, living this amazing life, but it's very hard to be one of those guys. And poker really has to be your life. They're like, I read an interview years ago with an assistant coach in the NFL, and they said, what's your plan to transition to full-time coaching? And he said, I don't have one of those. I love my kids and I get to see them. And like the interviewer was shocked, and he was like, no, that's, this is by far the more sensible way to live. to be one of the best in the world, you need to be incredibly driven and probably a little broken, honestly. Becoming a happier person over the last 7 or 8 years has really killed some of my drive to be the best in the world. I don't need it anymore. And that has really pointed out to me that the people who do need it, most of them need some help rather than a trophy. It really is like the obsession with being one of those people isn't necessarily healthy. And after my bracelet win in 2014, I considered, do I want to go on the road? I have this now. I had, at the time, I don't know, $700,000 or $800,000 in tournament winnings and millions in cash game winnings, and I could go be on the road, play everything, and be a famous poker player. And I talked to my wife about it. I talked to my parents about it just to see if the older people had some more wisdom about it. And when I kind of talked to everybody about what that life was like, they all told me, don't do that. And they were right. Those people, living in hotels and having I know a bunch of pros who live in hotels and have storage spaces in Vegas where they keep some of their stuff. And that's not a life I want to live. And eating casino food, sitting in crappy chairs, and then the high stakes world is not as much fun. High stakes tournaments can be really fun because the conversation is great and the people are very interesting. But the high stakes world in cash games involves a lot of being nice to people you don't like. It involves a lot of finding any way you can to get the whale in the game because there's only one, and if he's not there, there's no game. And treating that person differently, very differently than you would in any other situation. Just I don't want to do that. That doesn't make me happy.
And I think it also must change the way that you love poker or the way that you feel about poker when it's the method of making a living, when it's something that all of your livelihood depends on, the cards going your way and not running bad and, making it. I just feel like you get to enjoy it much more when it's just a piece of the puzzle and not the whole thing. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. And really what I did for the first till I was probably in my mid 40s was ruin all of my hobbies by making them into jobs.
Right. Yes.
I loved martial arts, so I became a professional Thai boxer, and then I hated it. Loved music, so then I became a guitar builder and repair guy, and then discovered I didn't really love that. Did all these things, and playing music for a living too was like, this isn't what I wanted to do. These are not the gigs I wanted. This is not what I pictured. Where's my big record deal and my stardom? And all of my hobbies really have ruined and turned them into jobs until I figured out that I was doing that and that I needed to stop doing that. And now I have hobbies and I like them and I still like them 5 years later. It's great.
That's amazing. That's part of having a rich, full life, right? I see we've got a couple comments in the YouTube chat already. I want to remind if you're watching us live in YouTube, you're going to have a chance to win a prize later as part of our food bank raffle, where we offer support to food banks around the world to fight against food insecurity. And if you have any questions for Fox, please do type them into the chat. And also, Chris Jones is going to be taking suggestions of famous poker players' names so we can play Stake Study Stack with Fox at the end of the interview. So start typing some famous poker players' names into the YouTube chat and get ready for our food bank drive at the end of the show. So we've got a couple here from Troy Chapman, who I know you're very familiar with.
I do know Troy.
Longtime Rec Poker member and a fantastic guy. And he's also been really impactful for how we kind of work within our organization here. So great to be hearing from you, Troy. I'm glad you're able to
before that, we have a visitor.
Chat. Oh, hello.
I told my wife to send the puppy, and if she was bothering her, she'd be on the podcast. So this is Carmen, our puppy.
All right, everyone wave to Carmen. Hello, Carmen, you adorable little thing.
There's a second webcam here that is pointed down, and I have an area on my desk where I can put her dog bed. And if she's sleepy and wants to be in here, I just put her up there on the desk while and then this is all set up for the broadcasts that I'm going to do, live streaming some poker, where I have the floof cam set up. So if she's in here, I can just put that on, and people would rather look at her than me, and so she'll be in the corner of the screen instead if she's around.
I love it. I love it. Well, Troy's got a couple of comments in here. He says, amongst all your jobs, the one that he appreciates the most is being a tour guide for the Arts District in Vegas and taking Australians out for dinner as part of that portfolio. And he says he's just been a massive long-term fan of your books, your coaching, and encourages us to get you more involved in our mixed game mandate over here. I know, Fox, you've already joined me to record some mixed games forums editions of the podcast coming up. I know mixed games are something very close to your heart. So yeah, you've got a lot on the go. What you recently released a novel as well, and you're a successful musician, like you mentioned. Are there any? I've kind of referred to you as a Renaissance man before we got started on the show here. Is there anything that you're not particularly good at?
Certainly. I've gotten better over the years, but diplomacy was something I wasn't good at.
Oh, really?
For a lot of years. Sometimes patience and tolerance are not easy for me around, in situations I don't enjoy.
Those go hand in hand. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then, I'm very creative in terms of music and writing. But my musical abilities have a limit. And so, I got a job at a music store, I don't know, when I was probably 22 or something. And was doing some guitar tech work, but mostly was just working in the music store, doing, selling guitars to people and stuff. And I saw people come through who were really, really gifted musicians. And it's one of those things, like, mostly talent equals practice. And I still believe that in most things. Mm-hmm. But but if you're 5'8", you just don't get to play in the NBA or be a professional high jumper. You just don't. And so, I saw people come into the music store, start working for us. It was the kid, Jeff Plankenhorn, who's still like an excellent musician. He's touring the West Coast right now. Jeff came in like freshly graduated from the University of Michigan with a music degree at like 22 years old or something. And he was good, but he wasn't a great guitar player. He was what a 22-year-old guitar player can be. And then 2 years later, I was like, holy crap, this kid's a wizard. He's unbelievable. And I put a dobro in his hand once, and he was like, this is great. How do I do this thing? And like 10 minutes later, he was really good at it. And I thought, I just don't have that. I just don't have that very top level ability. I just don't have it. And my business partner and co-author of a couple of my books, Adam Stemple, is like a truly gifted musician. So when he's playing guitar, I just shut up and watch. I can impress most people, but Adam can impress me, and there's a real difference there. So there are certainly things that I've discovered I just don't do as well.
Now, one of the things that you do extremely well is help other people understand the game of poker. And we teased that at the top of the show. As an author, you've worked with a lot of different training sites. You do individual coaching. Let's just talk generally. I mean, I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you're going to get involved in the RecPoker programming and some of the membership content that we produce here. But what do you think people are doing? What do you think a lot of people are doing wrong when it comes to how to learn poker or how to teach other people about poker? What are sort of like some common mistakes or misconceptions that people just don't seem to get?
I've thought a lot about how to kind of bridge this gap and how to teach poker in a more complete way. It is, you start playing poker, you don't know really anything. And then you learn all of these old saws, these little bits of wisdom. And they're things you use to get a little better, right? So we learn things like, deuces are a favorite against ace king. You can really misuse this piece of information. Right? This could get you in lots of trouble. You learn that, like, you want to see a flop with 10 jack suited, but you don't want to see a flop with aces or with kings or queens, right? And you don't want to get that hand cracked. And so you behave in different ways, and they help you go from 0 to 10, but they don't get you to 60 or 100 miles an hour. And in fact, they prevent you from getting there. So, instead, if we learn about pot odds and fold equity and ranges and how people play in different situations, then we can look at 10 jack suited and go, oh, this is the spot for me to fold this because there's two re-steal stacks behind me, and I'm just punting off 2.5 big blinds. If I call to see a flop here, I'm not going to get to see it. Or this is a spot where I should rip it in for 22 big blinds because I'm in the small blind and Somsky opened the button. He's going to fold. And so, or I better flat here because Joseph opened the button and he's going to call. I can't rip it in here. That's ridiculous. Like you learn to play the hand differently instead of the old saw that you learned, but that means unlearning all of those little bits of information that you picked up over the years about how to play. We are guaranteed to pick up a whole bunch of bad habits before we get serious about learning the game. And so it's unlearning those bad habits. And then, I've thought a lot about how to teach people starting with good habits right away. And I'm working on a course on that right now, which may end up on RecPoker. It might end up on my Patreon page somewhere that starts with the shortest stacks, like my book. I started at 0 to 5 stacks, but then takes the concept, what's your weapon here? How much fold equity do you have? All those things, and takes it all the way to up to 200 big blinds and talks about a lot of different situations. So, an important concept in, like, say, the re-steal zone is that there's enough money in the pot now for you to care about stealing it as a percentage of your stack, but there's not so much that your opponent is always going to call. And we have to find that sweet spot, right? So the re-steal zone is that sweet spot for re-stealing over an open. The push-fold zone is that spot for shoving over the blinds. We found this, its stack to pot ratio is kind of how you could express it, but it's really the sweet spot you're looking for. Well, that sweet spot exists at 200 big blinds too, if you get far enough in. So you want to plan out where do I want to be when that sweet spot hits? How do I want to get us there? Do I want to put my opponent in that spot so he can jam on me? Or do I want to get him to put me there? Or do I want to threaten him so he won't put me there? And use that same concept all the way up. So that in any hand, you look through it and you go, okay, these are my weapons here. If I do this, it'll be, I'll have to treat it this way and be a threat all the time. I still think about a table I played more than 10 years ago at the Win, in like a 2K at the Win. That was one of the toughest tables at the time I'd ever played at. Like the guy to my left was a pro. The guy to his left was Brian Devonshire. To Brian's left was Annette Oberstad. To her left was Recchi. To Recchi's left was Assassinato. To Assassinato's left was, and it went all the way around the table. Like I was the least known player at the table, and I was playing like really for a living at the time, and everybody knew who I was. It was horrible. And then Ty Raymond came in, who looked at the time like he was 14, was really young looking, and had just taken second, I think, in the PCA, or maybe he won it or something. And I had no idea who he was. And Devo told me on break, oh, that's Ty Raymond, and who, like, that he had some success, and I came back and from break, and every bet was a threat, and he did not care if he went broke. He was like, you guys want some? Let's go. And every bet was like, he would bet a third of the pot, which back then was unheard of. He would bet a third of the pot, and you would look at it and think, oh, if I raise him about the size of the pot, he's got like 4x pot, 3x pot to rip it in. So I can't. Or he would check to you because he's got 1.8x pot, and he was going, go ahead and bet, dude. See how that goes. It was amazing, the constant threat of everything that he did. And I really have like, I would like to teach people how to do that. And it's a thing that like a lot of us do now. It was just, that was the first time I had seen it against a table of great players, used in that way. So I would like to be teaching people how to think about the game in that way, instead of trying to teach them a bunch of old saws or a bunch of rules. I would love to teach them how to think about those few core concepts that are so hard to express, but that are the key to winning.
Yeah, that actually kind of takes up a question in the YouTube chat here, talking about transitioning from playing for fun and starting to look at things from a more analytical profit mindset. What are a few of the things that people have to do differently when they decide to go pro, or maybe not even to go pro, but to play more for money than for fun, to kind of slide over on that spectrum a little bit? What are some of the things that people need to do differently?
I don't know if you can hear that, but it's the world's saddest puppy.
No, I think we're coming through clear. Well, Fox is going to help Carmen out. I will just remind our YouTube chatters, if you've got any questions for Fox, type them right into the chat there, and we'll make sure that we ask them. And if you're here on the RECing Crew panel in the podcast, just unmute and we'll get you on there. Oh, and I'll remind our listeners, if you're a premium member and you're listening right now, Chris Jones is going to be hosting the deep dive seminar recording session as soon as shortly after the podcast. So if you're a premium member and you're listening live, don't forget to jump into the deep dive with Chris. That's one of the best things that we do here at RecPoker. There she is. They're back. Jet, that's like a disarmingly cute dog.
Yeah, she's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. She's so cute and also like mild mannered and friendly that we can't even go places. People cross the street and to like want to meet the dog, and like it's wonderful to take her through a group of people and just watch people like smile and dance a little bit through the day after they see her. She's amazing. I did not want to dog, but I like this one.
There's no substitute for good dogs. Dogs are the best. There's no doubt.
That's right.
So Chris, we got interrupted there, but talk to me a little bit about the change in mindset from being a fun recreational player to taking it more seriously and caring more about actually winning money than having fun. Because I do think there's a bit of a trade-off there. You kind of have to decide, am I playing for fun or am I going to have less fun because I'm focusing on results more? What do we have to think about when we make that switch?
For years, I thought that way. And I would tell my students, okay, if you're going to be serious about this, then you are trading some fun for money. And I no longer think that's either true or the way to look at it. One of the two. You're having a different kind of fun now. It's a better way to look at it. There's a lot of research on the words that we use matter in how we think, and that we should, can be considerate of that. I quit nicotine a couple months ago, and I had a friend who told me, "Don't say you're quitting. Say you have quit." And it actually matters. It actually matters in how your brain sees things if you think that way. So I think we should say fun in poker is different now. It's not gambling. It is what can I do in this situation? It is solving mysteries, solving logic puzzles, finding ways to handle different situations. It is now a game of puzzle solving, and doing the right thing and making money is the fun part, and making good decisions is the fun part, and gambling isn't. And finding out what the next card is going to be isn't. And that's the transition from one kind of fun to the next. Because when we start, it is, what's that? And like one of the ways you pick out, in Vegas in particular, we have so many recreational poker players that are just coming through. Right. In Minnesota, I knew everybody I played with every night. In Vegas, I almost never know more than one or two people at the table. And if I do know them, they're other pros, and I'm not happy to see them.
Right.
And so instead of knowing how a fish plays because I played with them for the last 2 years every night, I know how they play because I see the things they do right away. So, sometimes I see a particular look. Certainly you get better at judging looks and how people's appearances indicate how they're going to play, but you also see the things they do right away. And one of those things might be asking to see what the next card is. Everybody folds the flop, and the guy who folded the flop wants to see what the turn card was, right? That guy's not a pro.
Right.
He's a guy who wants to gamble and wants to see cards. And that means he's not going to fold a lot because he wants to see the cards, right? So this is a guy you can value bet against.
Yep.
Especially those, like, I've had people be mad at me a few times over these, but like those really, really small value bets where the guy just has to pay you because he wants to see the next card. I had a guy at the World Series 2 years ago, like, almost want to fight me because I bet $10 into a $200 pot on the turn. And he called, and then the next card came, and then I bet another $10, and then he called again because he made two pair, and then I showed him the straight that he knew I had. I had an ace in my hand, and it was a 10 Jack Queen King board, and like I bet $10 into 200, so he called even though he had 10-8. And and then he caught his 8 on the river and then had to call again and then was super mad at me because I bet the $10 into 200 like I was stealing from him. Which I sort of was, but
Right,
I knew
right.
I knew he was the kind of guy who was going to call. So you change your view on the thing to turn everything into money, turn every decision you make into money. And one of the easiest ways to do that for me, when I've worked with students who are kind of making that transition and having trouble with it, I will usually tell them, I want you to turn poker into a game of probability for a few weeks, to just look at it as, I'm going to estimate that this is the frequency that I'll win the pot, and this is the pot odds I'm getting, and that means this is a call or it isn't a call.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do that thing that you just that your calculations indicated. And I don't want you to trust your gut. Your gut will influence. Your gut can tell you how often you think you're going to win. Your gut doesn't tell you call or fold. Call or fold is entirely based on the comparison of your pot odds to the chances you're going to win the pot. And turn everything into that. How often does this guy have this? The more you learn about the game, the easier that gets, because you have all these other tools rather than your desire to gamble. So you become more and more certain that your decision is correct, and then tilt or emotions or desire to gamble won't creep into that so much.
Now, I know Chris has a couple questions from the YouTube chat coming up, but I wanted to take off from what you were just saying there about sort of players displaying their weaknesses through actions or through appearance or something like that. What are some of the other, and so like ask rabbit hunting, looking for that next card from the dealer as an example of that. What are some other examples of ways that players can display that they're less experienced, or that there's someone that you can take advantage of or exploit at the table? What are some of those other actions that kind of key that information to you?
Or the other way around.
Or the other way around. Yes.
They're really good.
Yes. Yeah. Give me a few examples.
So when I'm going to play cash and I walk up to a cash table, I played a lot of 2-5 cash for a big chunk of my living at the Wynn, kind of the few years before the pandemic. And in those games, it becomes so important to read people immediately because they are new people every night. And so, the 56-year-old guy with jet black dyed hair and a jet black dyed goatee and a $300 shirt where you turn the cuff in and it's a totally different looking thing than the right. That guy's horrible. He's my favorite fish, and he's never one time been good ever. He's horrible. Right. So, I look for a table with that guy at it. Like I see those turned up cuffs and I go, oh, that guy, table change to that guy's table. And if I see a 28-year-old Asian girl with headphones on being quiet, she's awesome at poker. I don't want to play poker with her ever. She's going to be good every single time. And some of that comes from knowing your game. What, these things might not all be true in the game where you play, right? But I've learned what's true in my game. And so learning those appearances, I've got a couple students that have taken a bunch of pictures at poker tournaments and then brought them to me. And so let's go through these and we'll, talk about each of the people and who they are. And sometimes just appearance reads will fool you, but behavior combined with appearance reads will never fool you. So when the Asian girl, the 28-year-old Asian girl with headphones shows up at the table, I've never seen this, but if she shows up and makes some sort of amateurish mistake, you have to reassess who this person is, but it's very rare in that case. The more common one might be somebody who shows up in poker gear, right? Like I'm playing a $500 tournament and somebody shows up in a 3-bet hoodie. Is this guy any good? And there's no way to know that just from the fact that he's wearing a 3-bet hoodie. Because, last time I played with Greg Mueller, he was wearing a 3-bet hoodie, and that dude can play.
Yeah.
But I see random recreational fish, like bad recreational players, show up in 3-bet hoodies all the time. Or WSOP hoodies maybe is a better example. I think WSOP, the guy wearing WSOP gear is much less likely to be good. But sometimes that's Sean Deeb who forgot his hat, right? That happened once, right? Like, you can end up with a great player who just needed a hoodie that day and doesn't care if he spends $120 on a crappy hoodie or whatever. Um, I really like and I've cataloged like hundreds of these and thought about writing a book about it. Um, Behavior reads, not that tell you what a person has at the moment, but tell you who the person is. I really like those, and I find them very interesting studying them, and it's something that people haven't talked about very much. So, like, you show the guy the winning hand on the river, right? Essentially the nuts. And he picks up his cards, holds them in front of his face, shows them to the other guy, like shakes his head. It's like he's got a nine there. He's got a nine there. And like taps his cards twice on the table, has a 5-minute funeral for his hand, right? If somebody throws a funeral for their hand, what do we know about them?
They're not experienced enough to just let it go would be the first thing that came to my mind.
But there are players who are experienced who will do this.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, they've got this emotional attachment, I guess, to the hand. Yeah,
they are attached to their hand. They're having trouble folding it when you showed them the nuts. Think how hard it's going to be for them to fold on the turn. Right? It was if it's hard for them to fold when it's 100% that they're beaten and they've been shown it to their face, they're going to have real trouble folding the turn when they have a chance to win. They are a non-believer, and they're going to pay you off. And sometimes they're going to pay you off to big bets because that makes them more curious. They are vulnerable to the muskie approach, which I wrote about years and years ago in an article in All In magazine, I think, where I talked about muskie fishing in Minnesota, and the way to catch a muskie is to piss them off. They see a big flashing bright bait and they get mad and they hit it. The big ones, that's how you catch them. And I talked about the things that make people angry at the poker table that make them attack the pot. Sometimes it's checking twice. Some people just can't stand it. Sometimes it's making an oversized bet, right? And if you get that guy that throws a funeral for his hand and the pot's really small, you might want to start making oversized bets to try to build that pot up really big, because making small bets is going to yield you with a very small return. So whereas with a good player, if you start making those big bets, you're never going to win a big pot from a good player unless unless it's super cooler. But from that funeral, from Mr. Funeral, you're going to see I know it's ridiculous, right? You're going to see a call from that guy who just gets stubborn and wants to know what the next card is.
Yeah. I like that. Mr. Funeral. I like that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And we can look for behaviors like that. The way that people look at their cards, the way they hold their cards, the way they fold their cards, the way they stack their chips, the way they shuffle their chips, the way they talk to the dealer, the way they talk to people. Who is this person? And I send a lot of my students on these, I call it side quests, to do secret interviews. Go talk to some people out in the world. They should not know they're being interviewed, but that's pretty easy because when you ask people questions, everybody wants to talk about themselves, right? That's why it's so easy to get us on these podcasts, really. Because poker pros all just want to talk about ourselves. And so you can standing in line at the bank or next to somebody on the train or whatever it is, just start asking people questions, talking to them and asking them questions. And at the end of this very short secret interview, I want you to look at what they look like and all the information that you could gather. And without them having any idea they're being interviewed afterwards, I want you to answer all these questions. And it'll be like, how much money do they make? How are they socially, right? Are they conservative or extravagant? Who did they vote for? Where do they live? Where did they grow up? What kind of family did they grow up in? I want to know how do they feel about gambling? What kind of poker player are they? I want to know about all these things soon as possible in this interview. And by the end of the interview, I want you to know all these things, and that includes appearance. Right? If somebody tells you that they're a farmer, but they're wearing the $300 shirt, then they're not a farmer. They're a guy who owns farmland and pays people to farm it, and they make a lot of money, but they don't actually farm. Right? So they're not. So when this person says they're a farmer, that tells us, well, I know he's not actually just a farmer. So that tells me he feels like people will have more respect for him if he says he's a farmer than if he says I inherited 12,000 acres from my grandfather, and people farm it and pay me money to do it. Right? Like he's saying that he's a farmer when he's not, and that tells you a bunch of things about his personality, right? If then you ask him about something and he mentions, if he mentions going to church, if we combine church and farmer, we get Republican 90%. If he says something about Trump, if we combine Trump and farmer, we get churchgoer 90%.
That's
right.
Interesting. Yeah.
If instead he says something about a liberal social policy that he likes, right? Then we know Biden voter. We also know not a typical farmer. So when he says he's a farmer, he's not actually trying to brag about being a farmer in the same way that most of them would be. Like, it's a different kind of brag to him. For him, it might be, I'm a farmer and I'm different than other farmers, and he's proud of that. That might be like part of what he's doing. But we, and then if he says he's got a couple daughters and he's really proud of his family, and they live in Omaha. Right now, he's a family man because he chose to mention it and talk about how proud he was. Right, a lot of guys don't do that. And he lives in Omaha, so his farmland is probably close to Omaha, and he is in fact somebody who owns a bunch of farmland. But he might have, right? If he said he lives in New York City, now he's just a person who inherited some farmland for sure. Mm-hmm. But if he says he lives in Omaha, maybe he's a person who worked a farm for a while, was a really good business person, built it up, now just pays people to work his farms. Could be a different thing. If he instead lives in the middle of nowhere and talks about big cities like he doesn't like them much, then we go back to Trump voter, right? Don't like big cities, is usually conservative voter.
Yep.
And we think, oh, this guy probably is a good hard-nosed business person who is in fact farming, but he's got money and he's proud of it. This is like, and we already know Trump voter and farmer, so probably churchgoer. And in this case, given the shirt and how proud he is of his money, we're probably evangelist church, probably that what's the term for it? Now I forget the word for it, but there's a word for Christians who believe that the more money you have, the more God is rewarding you for money. There's a word for it, and I just don't remember what it is. Yeah. But like, even people who don't know that's a thing, right? That's probably this guy. Now that guy is probably a better poker player than most of the others. If he's a hard-nosed business person who's made this money himself, then he's not letting go of money easily. Right. And like, I played with lots of farmers in the Midwest who were not attached to the money they had because in fact, they're much bigger gamblers than we are.
Right.
I mean, when farmers refer to me as a gambler, I would laugh. Like, I've never had a year where I lost $1 million. How about you? And they would go, oh, yeah. And they, well, that's what I thought then. So one of us is a gambler. And sometimes those guys are very comfortable because losing a couple of thousand over the course of the night is nothing to them because they're just used to gambling for such huge quantities of money. So, you look at all the things that make up who this person is. If I did a thing years and years ago, we brought a bunch of students to Reno, 11 people, I think, for a weekend for a seminar. And I had Adam was there and Al Schoonmaker was there. And I had them bring the students in for the first class, and I had not seen any of these people. And then I walked in and cold read everybody in the room. And I told them all about themselves. And I knew this would be a good hook, and it was a great hook. They were all impressed. Worked great. And the one guy, I said, you make between $60,000 and $90,000 a year. And he said, how do you know that? And I said, because you're wearing a Guess watch, and it was like $110 watch. And I'm into watches, right? And I used to be really into watches. And so you don't have that watch if you're worth $100 million or even $10 million.
Right.
And you don't have that watch if you're worth, if you make 25 grand a year, you're not spending $125, $150 on a watch. And it's not a watch that people generally get as a gift. right? If it was a cheap
Right.
right? Movado makes watches like almost down to that price range, and that's something you might give someone as a gift, but not a watch from Guess. So this is a person of reasonable means, right? If the guy was worth $5 million, he's either going to have a Rolex or he's going to have a calculator watch worth $5, but he's not going to have this middle of the road $150 Guess watch. So it tells me not with better than 90% accuracy what his income is by looking at his watch. Now take every piece of a person's clothing, behavior, every choice they've made about how they look and break them down the same way. And then do a secret interview with them, and then you just know everything about them. When I talk to people at the poker table and ask them what they do, I'm kind of interested. Mostly I just want their money. And they're going to tell me all about it.
Yep. Well, boy, I feel like we just had a clinic on extrapolating information from a limited data set. And like, that's such a crucial skill in the game of poker. And like you say, Fox, you have to start with some assumptions. And when you get different people in the poker room day after day, different tourists and, non-serious players, being able to size them up and make good assumptions about them feels like a crucial skill for a poker player. And obviously something that also helps you in other parts of your life. But that's just a fantastic way of going through that. Some great details.
That game that a lot of couples play where you look at some other people and try to guess what their story is.
Yeah.
I'm awesome at that game. And that's playing that game is how you get good at what I just talked about. It's playing that game with everything and every person.
And I was just going to ask a little follow up there. So, like, what are some ways to hone that skill? Just by practice, just by doing the practice interviews, and how do you kind of calibrate whether you're correct or not? Because I could see if you just get used to making assumptions, it's kind of hard to know if those assumptions are accurate or not.
I mean, a lot of them are, once you realize them, you know that they're right with a certain frequency. But then also you're just making those assumptions and then watching how people play, because how someone plays should trump that assumption if there's a change.
Yep.
If you're wrong, you should be able to see it in their play. And then, being able to do the same thing with people's play is also important. Right. But start with trying to extrapolate from every little thing you see, and get a group of people together that you text with and tell them, right? Like, to put it up for each other. I used to have a Facebook group where we did some of this, a bunch of pros, where we would post a behavior and then talk about what it meant, right? So someone walks up to a tournament table with their chips in their rack, sets it down. As they walk up, they're looking at each player and they're looking at each stack size. They're not looking at the dealer or the cards on the table or anything. They're just looking at the stacks and the players, and they quietly set it down and sit down, pop the chips out of their rack and stick their rack under their chair. And this is how a pro tends to approach a new tournament table when they get moved. And an amateur tends to walk up looking at the table itself and their seat and maybe the cards that are in the middle of the pot that's being played, and is, what's my new table all about? And the first guy approaches it like a shark, looking at, trying to figure out where the seals are. You see that approach, So extrapolate from every behavior you see and think about each one of them, because you're going to see them over and over. So once you figure out what that shark eyes looks like, you never miss it again.
Yeah. I like that. So we've got a bunch of questions in the YouTube chat. We're not going to have time for all of them today. That's the bad news. The good news is this isn't going to be your last chance to talk to Chris Fox Wallace here at the RecPoker podcast. But Jay Fleming had a couple in there. I'm glad we got to that one. We'll ask one quick one here from Joe Rafter, longtime member, fantastic guy over in Ireland. He says, you made a great point about the advantages of being perceived as always being a threat. Have you any advice on how to get out of the mindset of feeling like I'm the one under threat?
Oh, that's a good question. What has worked for me has been more knowledge. Be more certain. I know I'm making the right play here. The other is, you may be playing too big. You should be playing tournaments where bubbling isn't a big deal to you, where you're not afraid of your opponents. If you're playing in a tournament where you think that the average player is better than you, or there are many players who are better than you, then you should be treating it as a learning experience and not as something that you're doing for money. It is a learning. Maybe you make some money, but mostly it's a learning experience. And I'm going to watch the good players and figure out how they do things. That confidence, that approaching things in a way that you're the threat, that you're the boss, is that is a skill to really work on. Sports psychology books can help. Have it, resetting your mindset can help. There's all kinds of tools for changing your mindset too. I mean, I bring earbuds to the table with me, sometimes to block out noise, sometimes to listen to books if I'm getting too distracted, and sometimes to just change my mindset. I have a bunch of playlists on Spotify that are, I'm too involved in this game and I'm mad about it. I want to listen to this. I'm not involved enough and I didn't have enough coffee today and I need to get fired up, and that's a different, whatever works for you that gets you in that space. I use a hoodie and a hat and a pair of Blue Sharks to get me in that space sometimes too. Here, go lay down. And that does a big difference for me, because if I'm feeling not involved enough in the game, I can take off the hoodie, I can take off the sunglasses, and I can let more of the game in. And if I'm feeling threatened, then I can put all those things, I put the armor back on,
right,
and feel like I'm ready. I'm ready for this thing now. But a lot of it is just developing the knowledge and getting, the knowledge gives you the confidence, because now you're seeing so many mistakes at the table that you wouldn't make. You're seeing people do all these things, and that increases your confidence level for sure.
I love that. All right, well, we're going to head into the last couple segments of the interview here. Chris Jones is going to enter our stake study stack, and then we'll get into closing the action with a speed round and let you on your way, Fox. Chris, take it away.
All right, Fox. So I think you understand the game, but we play a game here called Stake Study Stack. I'm gonna give you three names. Most of them came up during the show today. You're gonna pick one that you would like to stake in a cash game or tournament, one who you'd like to study with, and one who you'd just like to take all their chips. And the three names I have for you are Brian Devonshire, Sean Deeb, and your co-author of one of your books, Michael Mizrachi.
Oh, Deeb is the tough one there, because I would like to study with him because he's so sharp. I mean, there's like no chance that he's not one of the 5 best players in the world, but it's so much fun to stack him. And staking him would be awfully valuable too if you could. I guess I would stake Devonshire. His results in tournaments are quite good, and I feel like he's one of those people who, if he's got somebody backing him, he feels extra responsible for making that person money. I would stake Devonshire, even though he's been out of the game for a while. He's still got the moves. I'm sure he still plays here and there. And I would stack Mizrachi. I like Michael. He's a funny guy, and it would just be fun. And it would allow me to study with Sean Deeb, who's just a wizard.
Love it.
There you go. Nice.
Sean's incredibly sharp. And playing with him is so interesting, because it's almost like he can't slip. Like he just doesn't have any interest in slipping. So while he may not make some of the very creative plays that a few of the other great players do, he just doesn't slip. He just doesn't.
That's fun. Good answer. We'll be tagging those players on Twitter when we release the episode. So
great.
All will be revealed. All right. So we're going to enter the speed round now. We like to call this closing the action. So Fox, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. We're looking for rapid fire answers, and you can say pass. So if you're having trouble coming up with a quick response, you can say pass. Okay. Let's get started. We'll start you off with an easy. Oh, no. All right. We're on Carmen duty first. Puppy priority. I love that. I love that Fox's wife was like, "Hey, Chris, you're doing an interview, but you gotta take the
Have this dog. Yeah. It was probably more the dog's decision,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And Jim, I have a bonus question for the speed round when you're done.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. We'll put that in last then. All right, we're going to start with an easy one. We're going to start with an easy one, Chris. And speed is of the essence here. So, what is your favorite poker hand?
Aces.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill.
What is your biggest poker pet peeve?
People bumping into my chair when they walk by me.
Oh, God, I hate that. What's your favorite non-poker book or one of your favorite non-poker books?
The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Nice. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Are you pro chop or no chop?
Pro chop.
One of your favorite musical artists?
Jimi Hendrix.
What player type are you?
Yes.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Oh, that's a good question for me.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's one thing you're afraid of? We stumped him, gang. We got him.
Yeah, I got nothing.
They're coming up on pass. I love it. That's okay. That's what pass is for. What's your personal favorite mixed game? I know you enjoy a lot of mixed games. What's your favorite?
Super Stud 8.
Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Bunch it.
What's your favorite? You're a child. It's the holidays. Back in the day, your favorite childhood holiday meal. What is it?
Bluegills at my grandparents' house.
Register early or max late reg?
No.
Who is your poker nemesis?
Paul Volpe.
All right, Joseph, you had one to throw in at the end.
Yeah, using a card guard, does that categorize somebody as a fish?
No, but it increases the likelihood.
All right, and that's the end of the speed round, but I do have one more question for you before we let you go. What's one thing that the poker world needs to do differently? And you take a little time with this if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I could spend all day on this because I have
I know
a very strong opinion about it. I love our local card rooms and casinos. They are wonderful places. If you are a person who runs a card room or owns a casino, please tune off now. We're being held hostage by these fucking places. Poker doesn't belong in these places, and it is costing us so much money that they spend lobbying money to keep us in these places. A poker tournament is not different from a 9-ball tournament or a Scrabble tournament and should be played in the same places. And if it were, we'd be playing at the convention center this weekend at the Red Bull Open, where my entry would be free, and there would be $1 million added to the prize pool.
I like the way you think about it.
Poker, everything would change about poker if we could just rip it out of the casinos, but they will never let it go. That's probably not even a realistic thing to talk about. They have all the money to do the lobbying. They have all the power, and politicians don't know the difference between poker and, I mean, how many people do you meet and you go, I play poker, and they go, oh, do you count cards?
Right.
People don't know the difference in that this game we play is different from, mahjong tiles or slot machines or whatever. They don't know the difference. So we're going to still, end up in these places. But that's the thing that poker needs to change. And if we can't change that, if that's just not realistic, then we need some sort of feeder system that really works, that gets new people interested in the game. The poker boom was not because of lipstick cameras in the WPT, though that helped. The poker boom was not because of Texas Hold'em becoming the game, though that was important. It was not because of the World Series of Poker and Chris Moneymaker, though that was nice. It was because people could start playing for 1 cent, 2 cent on the internet. That's when the poker boom happened. Look exactly when online poker started and watch the poker boom skyrocket from there. That is what made all the difference. And people cannot do that right now in most states. And even in Nevada, where we have WSOP.com, there are a bunch of hoops you have to jump through that you didn't have to when I started playing poker. I mean, rather than go provide all my ID at the cage in a casino and all that stuff, you know what I did? I went to Party Poker and I gave them my email address, and they sent me $50 for free and said, welcome. Right? That's what we need. We need online poker to come back, and we need it to be friendly and low stakes. We need some competition, and to have those low stakes friendly games where people can start playing and work their way up, and just learn about the game. If you can play for nickels and understand how the game works, then you're not intimidated to walk into a casino. People I know that don't play and have never played will usually tell me I just wouldn't know what to do, and I would be intimidated walking into a casino and seeing. And if a brand new person who didn't know anything about poker sat down at a 2-5 game tomorrow at the Wynn, half the people at the table would be rude to them because they'd be mad.
Yeah. Well, that's
unless I was at the table, and then half the people at the table would be fighting me because I would not tolerate that. But that's something we have to do, is protect the new players, the recreational players. Even if somebody's the worst, most frustrating player in the world, we shouldn't be attacking them for their play, and we should be actively defending people who are attacking them for their play. Like it's not enough in my world to not verbally attack women in the poker room. You have to defend it. You have to do something, right? Mm-hmm. We should be doing the same thing with new and recreational players. If somebody goes after a recreational player, a new player, a bad player at my table, now the fight is with me, so that this person not only isn't being berated anymore, but the person who started it is now being punished for starting it. And the person who's the recreational player sees that they have the support of a person. And as serious poker players, right, we just have more cachet at the table. We shouldn't, but we do. And so we should be defending these people aggressively. I got into it with, I won't say the name, but like one of the more well-known players in Minnesota, and if you play a lot there, you know who I'm talking about, who can be really hard on bad players making mistakes at tables and tournaments. And like the first 3 or 4 times he and I interacted were me telling him to shut his mouth and stop behaving this way and like defending people. And now we get along fine. But at the time, it was attacking this person who had, more fame and more money than I did. But like, what do I care? You're in a poker room. Nobody can do anything to you, so speak up.
I love that. Some great thoughts there. Thanks, Fox. So we're gonna start our food bank raffle here, and I just want to take a moment to remind our YouTube chatters to type the words food bank into the YouTube chat so we can draw a prize later. I just want to remind people that food insecurity is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially these days, and it might be someone that you don't expect. It might be someone in your own neighborhood. It might be someone in your community. And you never know who's just struggling to put food on the table or to feed their kids or to help support their family. And one of the highest ROIs you will find on a charitable donation is to drop off some non-perishable food items or a few dollars out of your pocket to a local food bank. And if you just pull out your smartphone right now and Google food banks near me, you'll find an organization that could benefit from some money, some non-perishable food items, or maybe even just volunteer a few hours of your time every week. And one of the ways that we like to do that is just by giving away a prize every week on the show. If people type the words food bank into the YouTube chat here, you'll be entered into our raffle. So start doing that, and we'll do the draw shortly. Fox, where can people find you? Where would you most like people to reach out? What can our listeners do if they said, wow, that was a fantastic interview. I want to get more Chris Fox Wallace in my life. I want to say thanks for coming on the show. What's the best way for people to show their support?
First of all, I love that you're doing the food bank thing. That's fantastic. I work with a couple of groups locally that do food bank stuff, and that charity series of poker that Joseph won an award for What award did you win, Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph,
We-
you had something to add here, I think.
Oh yeah, we won the Daniel Negreanu Extra Effort Award for CSOP. My wife Tony and I.
Hold on.
Amazing. Yeah, you and Tony have been big proponents of everything going on in the CSOP, and it's great having you here on the Wrecking Crew and sharing your talents and your contributions with the rest of the poker world. And we're going to be doing some stuff together with the CSOP coming up as well. Well, maybe we'll save some of those details until we have a chance to. Okay.
I was going to go grab my Daniel Negreanu Extra Effort Award from last year, but I don't know where it is.
Oh,
only 2 people have ever won that award, and it's me and Joseph.
There you
Right?
go. Well, we collect the best here at Rec Poker, no doubt.
Let me know what I can do to help with all the food bank stuff you do. That's a really, really valuable thing.
Okay, I will for sure.
Yeah, I'll come up with some ways to do some extra giveaways or something too.
Oh, I love that. We did raise a bunch of money for the Second Harvest Heartland Food Bank in Minnesota while we were there at Running Aces for the Rec Poker weekend. Was just a great way to raise some awareness, raise some funds to drop off.
$300 more than $300 worth of food, right? I think.
Oh yeah, and then a few people donated some cash as well that we'll be passing along in their name. So I think over $500 or $600 that we raised there between cash contributions and food contributions. I'm really pleased to be involved in that effort. So that's fantastic. I'm having some video technical issues here, but you got enough seeing my ugly mug here on Mondays anyway. Fox, where can folks reach out if they want to say thanks or get more Chris Fox Wallace in their lives?
Well, this is sort of the beginning of a whole effort to do more poker training and to do more coaching on a kind of a wider basis. So I am going to start streaming live on Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/FoxPlaysPoker. And I'm starting a Patreon where I am dumping 20 years worth of notes and articles and various other things on, which is patreon.com/checkitdown. And you can email me at blindstraddle@gmail.com. Any of those things, those are all easy ways to get in touch with me. Poker.photos is also a website of mine where there's a searchable database of 2,500 photos of poker players, and there's some other stuff on there, and some of my wildlife photography's on there, whatever.
Fantastic. And as you know, as I mentioned, Fox is now an official member of the Wrecking Crew. If you go to rec.poker/Fox, you can find his Wrecking Crew page with some information about him, some links to what he's getting up to these days. And I encourage everyone to go and find out a little more about Chris Fox Wallace by going to rec.poker/Fox. Thank you again, my man. If listeners enjoyed this, buckle up. You're going to be getting more Fox in your life over the next little while here at Rec Poker. So I want to say on behalf of all of us here, thanks for your time, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be super fun. And if anybody out there wants to hang out on Monday nights, if you're in Vegas and you're free on a Monday night, we go out and serve food near the homeless shelter. So we always need more people. So get in touch with me, and I'll tell you where to meet me, or I'll come pick you up on the way, or my wife will come pick you up on the way. And it's a super fun event, and there's a lot of poker players that go.
That's outstanding. And the timing for that will probably work out such that if you want to tune in live here for the podcast at 4:30 Pacific time, you'll have plenty of time afterwards to go do some good with Chris and in his group there. So thank you, man. That's awesome.
The timing is perfect. We usually leave here like about 45 minutes from now. So
perfect. All right. Well, keep up all the great work, and I can't wait to see you again real soon.
I will see you again soon on Rec Poker.
All right, man. And I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. So if folks want to get a little more Chris Fox Wallace in their life, they can check that out. We're going to talk about some home game results, compliments of the one and only John Somsky, and then we will do our food bank raffle and give away some prizes. John, take it away, boss. Oh, you're muted. Yes. Full Somsky. I am not the only one to screw up the cues this week. Yes.
And he's a tech guy.
Well, I know, but that's I often forget to unmute. That is called pulling a Somsky, but it's been like a year since I've done that, so it's been a while.
You still got it. We love it.
Okay, on January 15th, ZGRT 1110, Chona Bitang got her first nightly victory for the year.
Nice.
JS Sedum, Jeff S, got his first nightly victory for the year. Michael Babker got his first nightly victory for the year. Bone Crusher 14, Marcel Dusix won the daily mixed practice event. Mike B 172, Mike Bayer won his first international victory. Killy 19341, Rich Deacons got his first international victory, and Now Then KB won the LPP event, so he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Right on. Way to go, Doug. Hope you're enjoying the new setup down there in Florida. I'm very excited to send me an update, man. Let me know how things are going down there. We haven't talked since this is Doug Behrens, who was my roommate in Las Vegas this summer. Hope things are going great, and glad that you're still kicking butt here in the Rec Poker Home Game Club. And when Fox was mentioning earlier, people, new players finding places to learn for free or for cheap stakes, and that's what this Home Game Club is all about. Is play money chips, but the prizes are real. The battle is real. People don't come in and just donk it off. This is for serious players who are trying to practice and get better together. And it's a fantastic way to get some reps in, to work on your strategy before you go out into the live card room. People that find that environment a little intimidating or don't feel like they have enough experience to really be a boss in the live streets, join the Home Game Club. It's free, and it's a great way to get some experience there. Joseph, did you have something?
Yeah. Just the 2 to 7 single draw on Wednesday was fantastic, and I think that was the practice tournament. But it definitely helped out a lot. So, that was great.
That's right. And if you're in Las Vegas, look up Joseph Wills and the Poker Oasis, his home game club there that he runs with his fantastic wife, Tony. I can speak from experience. It's a great way to go splash around in some low stakes mixed games, some low stakes, no limit hold'em, and meet some fun people and practice a little bit. It's a fantastic club you got there.
Thanks.
All right, so Chris Jones, you've got the Diso cam out there looking through the YouTube chat. I only see a few people that are entering the food bank drive. I see Joe. No, who's the first one here? Joe, then K Poker Wannabe, then Jay Fleming, then Troy Chapman. That's 4. Is that what you see as well? All right, so we're doing the pyramid die.
4-sider I got. All right, are we ready?
Who's it going to be? Let's find out.
It's a 3.
It's a 3.
It's hard to
Jay
put this one on
Fleming.
camera, but it's a 3.
There you go. Yep. All right, Jay Fleming, send that email to info@rec.poker and claim your prize. If you are not already a Rec Poker Premium member, you've won a free month of membership here at Rec Poker. And if you are already a premium member here at Rec Poker, then you've won a free month at one of our learning partners. Some fantastic groups out there: Solve for Why, PokerCoaching.com, the Poker Forge, Learn Pro Poker. I'm going to miss a few of these right now because we're doing this live on the air, but there are a lot of them.
Don't forget our new one, Jaka.
Oh, coaching. Yeah. Jaka Coaching just came on board this month as well. So, and I will just remind you, Jay Fleming, that you can get your first month of Rec Poker Premium member for only $5. And then you'd be a premium member, and then you'd be able to win one of these other prizes. So think about it and send that email to info@rec.poker. All right. Well, is there anything else that we should cover here, gang? Chris, I know you've got to jump because you're setting up the deep dive recording session, which all our premium members should go enjoy next. Then I think without further ado, if folks want to help us out, they can go to rec.poker/support and find some ways to help us either monetarily or just by liking and subscribing to it through a few things. I want to thank all our premium members for their support. I want to thank the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. They've got some fun stuff coming up. Go to runaces.com to check that out. Chris Wallace, John Somsky, Rob Washam, Joseph Wills, Chris Jones, and you, the listeners. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks for tuning into the Rec Poker Podcast. We'll see you next week, folks.